Some did present with weapons, knives, stuff that they would use in their, as they camp out and such. And what we do for those folks is we ask everybody coming in, are you carrying any weapons, anything you want to, we would accept those, we secure them, we put names on them, we lock them up, and when they leave, they can have the possession back. Or they might be with us for a week or 2 weeks and never touch that because there's no need for them to have that out in the community. So everybody who comes in, it's very clear that if we find that they have any weapons that they do not turn into us, then that would exclude them from future shelter stays. So there's a consequence to not following those rules and regulations. We do our best to, we're not going to be digging through all their possessions. If they come in with a wagon load of stuff and that we're able to sort of store that in a location, that's one thing. We get to know them. It's really a relationship issue that goes on. John, we know that you carry a knife. People tell us you carry a knife. We want to secure that knife. You cannot come in here unless we're confident that you aren't coming in with that knife. So we really work with each and every one of them to make sure that they feel safe and that we and our staff are safe in that same environment. So depending on how they present themselves, if they're too drunk to be in the facility because they're a danger to themselves, then that's going to be between law enforcement and them. So, but I just don't see it presenting itself that way. I just didn't see it in action for that so I can confidently say I think we can deal with it. Also will secure their medications or drugs if that's what they want to make sure it's safe so nobody steals it from them. But again, I saw this population, very unique Auburn homeless population that cares for each other. I mean, I saw it in action. I was quite amazed by it. But nonetheless, we're not Pollyanna. We're not going to believe that the real world is what it is. I understand it. But we have policies in place that will make sure that my staff are protected. And in terms of security, we have to make sure we do regular half-hour tours around the facility, make sure no one's hanging outside, no one's doing anything untoward out there. We want to make sure we have enough lighting out there so that we've got good visibility. It's how we run all of our shelter programs. So, all right.
Hi, I'm in the Farm Advisor's office, building 306 across from the parking lot. We'll be sharing a parking lot with the shelter. We also have the demonstration garden for the master gardeners that is directly across that also has a senior garden in it that is for some senior citizens in our area that have gardens in there. We already have some issues ongoing that, we've been able to handle, small confrontations that go on in the garden, but we're looking at an increased population now of the homeless in the area with the shelter there. We're at the Farm Advisor's office. We're not trained or equipped to know how to handle situations that may arise from the mental health and drug abuse issues that are part of the population. So I'm looking for some training materials, some help with our staff to calm the fears and concerns that are coming up from our volunteers, families that visit our office in evenings, weekends, that our office is open for workshops and other things going on, and senior gardeners that are in the gardens when we're not in the office. I like to hear that you're in the area a lot and maybe a stop by and meeting all of those gardeners and giving them an access to who do they call when there is a problem. They're being confronted in the garden. They need to know what to do. So I'm looking for training materials, something that helps us know when somebody comes into my lobby, what am I doing with that? We're not trained for it.
Great. It's an excellent suggestion. We'll follow up and work with the Sheriff's Office and some of our folks in the adult system of care and see what we can do. Thank you.
Hi. At the Auditor Controller's Office. I was just wondering if somebody could speak to the liability piece of this deal. What kind of liability is the county looking at in case a crime happens or an assault? Or of one of the volunteers that staffs the shelter?
So that was a concern of our Board of Supervisors, as you might well imagine. And I think they took some comfort and confidence in knowing that Volunteers of America run other facilities elsewhere. And so in addition to a track record doing this kind of work, we obviously have the normal protections that we would when we lease any building to any non-county entity. We've had a history of doing that here at the DeWitt Government Center campus, whether it's for-profit or nonprofit. And so we've had a lot of advice from County Counsel's office to make sure that we're as protected as we can be. Doesn't shield us from any and all possibilities, but it was clearly a concern of our board, and we've addressed it in the best way we know how.
DPW, I have a couple questions. One, for those folks who have dogs or cats, have you considered trying to give those animals veterinary services like shots and flea medicine? I'm sure they're suffering from fleas.
I would say, sorry, let me start and Leo can finish, or someone from Health and Human Services. That's something that we were just talking about the other day, as a matter of fact, that what a great opportunity this is to make sure that the pets are vaccinated and up to date on all their shots. We're going to be working with Mike and his staff to take a look at whether it makes more sense to make available the animal shelter here just a block away, or, as Leo said, whether on-site would be something that the people would prefer to have, to know that their pet is nearer by. So those are things that are active conversations right now.
And then the second thing is, I know you're still going to have 296 residents running around. You're still going to have parolees or addicts who may not want to take services. How do we protect the greater campus? Our deputies can't be here on the campus, but I mean, we have folks that work early, they stay late, and then when the greater population of cars leave, especially around this building, they start coming in towards the building. We have someone that's sleeping in the dumpster area, which I know is a common thing. How are we going to protect us in the greater campuses? I mean, you've talked about those who are around, but how do you protect us here in the greater campus?
Well, I think being smart about our surroundings is a starting point. I realize that only goes so far. It's, leaving the building with others is one way to do that. Just to be aware of your environment is another thing. We're going to look to the sheriff's office to provide, visible presence here on site. The fact of the matter is that we're living with this situation right now, and by creating this, it gives us the opportunity to pilot this program, see what we learn from it, so that we can serve this population the best way we know how within the constraints that we operate within. So I think, again, I'll make another pitch. Mary touched on it lightly. We will be having regular community forums every 2 weeks. And so if issues are emerging, we're hoping to identify those early on so that we can be proactive and preventative and anticipate as many of those things as we can and deal with them head on. I don't know if, Leo, you want to add any?
Let me just say, there's something I want to make sure I don't forget to say. The operation of the shelter, and this, we're going to be very strict about this. Entry to the shelter is you're in for the night. And 8 o'clock is the cutoff. So we won't be expecting to see people showing up at 10 o'clock to come into the shelter. So it's going to be very quickly, everyone's going to know, between 5 o'clock and 8 o'clock, that's a 3-hour stretch. You got to be in the building. There's no coming and going. There's no, oh, I got to go down and get some cigarettes. Okay, you can walk down the neighborhood and go out and drink or do whatever you're going to do and come back. So once they're in, it's a captured population for that full night. If they leave, they won't be able to come back in. Now, if they've got their possessions there and they've got their dog there, there's a real incentive for them to stay. And so that's why we need to make it as inviting and supportive as we can, so we don't have a lot of in and out. We saw a lot of the in and out stuff during Christmas, and people, by the time we were into our third evening, got it and understood that they were just coming in and they were there. So we're going to, what happens at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock out there in the community is really law enforcement. We will accept somebody from law enforcement into the shelter at any time if there's a bed available. So if they bring somebody at 1 o'clock in the morning, we have a bed available, we'll take a law enforcement referral. But we're going to cut it off at 8 o'clock. That way, everybody's in, really now, it's almost summertime, pretty much before dark, everyone's going to be in. And then that's the population we're going to have. So you're not going to see a lot of coming and going. It's not going to be laxed rules. It's going to be real structured. And in terms of the earlier question about the liability, we have to ensure both Right-Hand Auburn as well as the county, Placer County, is additional insured to our insurance policy, our umbrella liability coverage, which is very standard and significant.
Let me jump in just for 1 second to answer Cynthia's question regarding animals. During the November storm, we actually offered to many of the homeless individuals that had animals the ability to check their animal in our shelter, and we would take the opportunity to vaccinate the animal. We actually had no takers. But now we're actually looking at the